So this is a great question. In a world where you are constantly told no or you can't do it, how do you fight imposter syndrome? What advice do you have for a young woman who is learning to stand up for herself? Um, I had imposter syndrome a lot of my life, and I think I still do. And I think the thing that helps me is to know that everyone else does too. Um, Even at the fanciest events with the most kind of famous and rich people, no one really 1,000% thinks they deserve to be there, especially when you're talking about things like award shows, which are so overblown and impressions of themselves anyway. But I'll tell you a story. So my first professional television writing job, it was for a TV show, and I was the only girl, and I was the youngest. And a lot of the other guys on this writing staff were assholes. They were really mean, and I would go home and probably cry at night every other day. And I was quite young. I was 23 years old. And so I already was scared that I didn't deserve to be there. And then there were people basically telling me every day, you don't deserve to be here. Or that's what I thought. So years later, I did a podcast where I talked about being on my first writing staff and how it was a rough room. And I get a call from one of the guys who was really mean on the staff, asking me if it was him, if he was one of those mean guys. And I said, yes, yes, you were. You made me cry every day. I was terrified of you. In fact, I'm still terrified of you. I'm shaking right now as I'm on the phone with you, um, because he was such a bully. And he said, oh, I didn't even register that I was being mean. I was just so in my head about impressing the boss. And I felt like this was one of my first writing staffs that I needed to impress them. And so he had the same amount of imposter syndrome that I did. He just covered it up really well. So I guess know that if someone's mean to you, chances are they are just as, if not as insecure as you are. And that meanness is coming from insecurity, because people who are not insecure help other people. They don't see other people's strength as their weakness. So seek out the people who make you feel more yourself, because anyone who doesn't, they're not someone you should look up to anyway. So this question asked, was there a time that something was suddenly taken away from me, and how did I cope with that? And this is an interesting question that I felt drawn to because I'm currently in the middle of answering this question, because a couple of months ago, one of my songwriting partners passed away from COVID, and it was very sudden. It was very unexpected, and I had just given birth to my daughter when I found out he was sick, and a week later he died. And he and I were in the middle of working on a Broadway musical together, and so now I am about to come out of maternity leave and go back to some of the stuff that he and I were working on together before he died. And the answer is, all I can do is move on, but remember the lessons that this person taught me. And I was talking to my friend the other day, who's also a musician, about writing without Adam, my writing partner. And my friend said, he's always going to be there with you because you learned so many lessons from him. And I did. He was a lot older than I was. He was more experienced than I was. He was a mentor in many ways. And my friend said, he's always going to kind of be there. He'll always be this phantom writing partner. And those lessons that you learned from him will never go away. And so he'll always be this kind of unspoken writing partner. And this is the first time that I'm really dealing with grief, with someone that was suddenly taken away from me. And the idea of it's okay to miss them. You don't have to pretend that you never knew them or that you never met them. It's okay to be sad and just kind of picture as if they're still there. That's how to keep their memory alive. And again, I'm still in the middle of coping with this, but I think that whenever something or someone is suddenly taken away from you, what I'm learning is to accept it as a loss, but ride the wave of grief, whatever type of grief that means. If it's a person or if it's a thing, to not deny emotions. It's healthy to feel. It's healthy to mourn the loss of something. And whatever that was taken away, it helped make you who you are, and it got you to where you were today. And so as I'm kind of learning to grieve and riding the waves of grief, that's what I've learned so far. But check back in with me in a couple years.